Hi, Kathy here from Sheriff and Morgan. I have some important information about paying your vendors and 1099 compliance, and this will include some information about backup withholding, which your vendors are subject to if you do not have a valid W-9 on file. So let's talk about why 1099 reporting is important. Mainly because it's the law. But here's another reason. It's documented that when W-2s and 1099s are filed, misreported income is greatly reduced, and therefore more individuals are paying their tax. If everyone pays their tax, the government has more to work with and may not need tax increases. We can hope. When businesses file information returns, it greatly reduces underreported income. The table to the right shows that income subject to 1099 reporting, which is the second column, 5% of those taxpayers misreport their income. Compare that to the fourth column, where no 1099 reporting, no information reporting is done. 55% of those taxpayers misreport their income. So you can see that we can help make sure that everyone pays their fair share of taxes. Another reason to file your 1099s is to avoid penalties. Please note that penalties are per return. So if you file your 1099s after August 1st, the penalty is $290 for not filing with the IRS and $290 for not sending a 1099 to your vendor. Willful disregard is $580 per instance. And that's per vendor, by the way. So this could add up. There are some maximum penalties. Probably you're not looking at more than $1,177,500. We can afford that, right? No. So what kinds of payments are reportable? Most of our clients are going to be filing 1099s for payments for services to independent contractors or professionals, rents, medical care payments, and potentially interest. The other items here are definitely applicable to reporting, but we just don't see much of that. Things that are not applicable to 1099s would be gains, profits, for instance, that get reported on Schedule C, payments to employees, distributable net income from an estate or trust, taxes, mortgage interest, insurance premiums, and prizes or winnings paid to non-resident aliens. This would be for professional athletes or artists. The next factor to consider is who you're paying. I'm going to give you a list here of people that are exempt, but everybody else is a 1099 recipient. So non-vendors, such as employees, 1040S recipients, which are non-resident aliens. You don't file a 1099 for them, but you would file a 1040S for them. Most corporations, governments, not-for-profits, colleges and universities, churches, IRAs, insurance, assurance, reinsurance, and indemnity companies. So if you don't fall in this list, you're a 1099 recipient. Next, we want to determine, are you someone who should file? What is a trade or business? Generally, a trade or business is any activity carried on for the production of income from selling goods or performing services. The Supreme Court has interpreted trade or business to mean an activity conducted with continuity and regularity and with primary purpose of earning income or making a profit. Real estate rental has traditionally been exempt from classification as a trade or business. However, if you are taking the qualified business income deduction on your tax return to exempt 20% of your rental income from tax, you are subject to the 1099 rules. Next, I want to talk to you about backup withholding and determining if your vendor is subject to it. The IRS gives us some presumption rules. Businesses are presumed to be foreign financial entities until proven otherwise and are subject to 30% withholding. How do you prove otherwise? You get a W-9 or a W-8. Individuals are presumed to be subject to backup withholding of 24% until they provide a valid W-9 form. Foreign individuals are presumed to be subject to 30% withholding until they provide a valid W-8 form, either exempting them from withholding or showing withholding at a lower rate. If you don't have a W-9 or W-8, withhold or don't pay until one is provided. So what are your options if you didn't get a W-9 and then you didn't withhold? You can withhold from future payments the amount that should have been withheld from the first payment. If you're not going to have any future payments, you could be liable for the amount that should have been withheld, and this can hurt. Ouch! So has a payee refused to provide a W-9? Here are some steps you could take. First of all, explain your company policy of requiring a W-9 to set up new payees in your system. If they continue to refuse, state your company's intention to comply with the IRS regulations and that without the proper documentation, you're required to institute backup withholding at 24%, beginning with the next payment. 30% for non-resident aliens, starting with the first payment to the payee, unless a tax treaty applies. Offer to send them a PDF fillable form to use to expedite the process. This usually solves the problem, but I'll say it again. If you don't have a W-9, don't pay them. So you want to be sure that the W-9 form is completed correctly. Line 1 should be the name shown on the tax return of the vendor. A lot of times this is different from the business name. So Joe Smith Contracting might have, that's his business name and that's who you make the checks out to. But when he files his tax return and doesn't have a employer identification number, we have to match the Social Security number to the name on line 1. So it should be Joe Smith and his Social Security number. Line 2 is used for a DBA. So Joe Smith might be on line 1, Joe Smith Contracting on line 2. In box 3, your vendor is going to select their entity type. If they're an individual sole proprietor or single member LLC, they're going to check that box. If they're a limited liability company, LLC, they might want to go down to the box below and indicate if they are a C, S, or partnership, P. If they don't check that box, then we're assuming they're just treated as a sole proprietor. Please note there are boxes for C Corporation and S Corporation. These vendors are normally exempt, but they must go and complete box 4, entering a code 5 in the exempt payee box. Part 1, the taxpayer identification number must match the name on line 1. Electronic signatures or PDFs are okay unless the W-9 is submitted after the IRS has notified you of an incorrect taxpayer identification number. Then you need a wet signature, and the vendor might need to mail or drop off a W-9. Please note that a company receiving a W-9 should not write anywhere on the front of the form prepared by the vendor. This is the vendor's certification, and you shouldn't modify it. If the form isn't complete, return it to the vendor to correct. Next, you want to verify the W-9. You want to be sure the form is complete. And then you can go to the IRS website shown below here and use the TIN matching system to verify that the name and number match. If there are any errors on the W-9, return it to the payee for correction. Do not make these changes yourself. It's their certification, and you need to protect yourself. So I mentioned payments to corporations are generally not reportable, but here are a few exceptions. Medical and healthcare payments. Barter exchange transactions get reported on a 1099-B. So if you've traded your services for the services of someone who has a corporation, you have to file a 1099-B. Attorney fees and gross proceeds paid to attorneys. Doesn't matter that they're a corporation, you have to report it. Merchant and third-party network payments get reported on 1099-K, and these are reported to everyone, including corporations, as are cancellation of debt reported on Form 1099-C. So I mentioned medical payments. These are payments made in the course of your trade or business to a physician or other supplier of medical or healthcare services. They get reported in Box 6 of the 1099 Miscellaneous. If a payment is made to a corporation, the corporation is the recipient rather than the individual providing the service. So here are some examples of things that you might pay in the course of your trade or business. And keep in mind, this is just if it's for business, it's not for your personal. Payments to hospitals for medical care, other than nonprofit hospitals. Payments to emergency care clinics, physicians, and veterinarians. Payments for medical office visits, including employee physicals. Payments for physical therapy and other types of therapy. Payments for opticians, optometrists, but not the purchase of the glasses themselves. Payments for nursing home care. Payments for dentist and dental care. Payments for x-rays, lab services, drug tests. So again, these are not something that many businesses see, but if you're having your employees drug tested, you need to file a 1099. If an employee is hurt and you're paying for their medical care, again, you need to file a 1099. If you just have benefits that pay these for employees, a 1099. Some other tips, if you pay interest of $600 or more in the course of your trade or business, you're required to file a 1099 INT. If the payments are made to vendors using a credit card, you don't include those payments on a Form 1099. However, you would report payments using cash apps like Zelle. The reason you don't include credit card payments is the merchant processor files a 1099-K, and that would be a duplicate if you filed it again. You want to know the state and local reporting requirements that apply to your company. There are fields on the 1099 for state income and withholding, if your company has nexus in any state. If travel is included in an invoice from a service provider, it should be included on the 1099. If materials on a service invoice are broken out, you may exclude them from 1099 reporting, but you don't have to. If you include it and your vendor says, hey, you shouldn't include that, you can say, I'm allowed to, or just not respond to them. In 2023, if you file more than 100 1099s, you must do it electronically. That threshold is expected to be reduced to 10 in 2024. Thanks for your time, and please contact us if you have any questions about this. And please, please, please get those W-9s before you pay your vendors.